Hello there, and welcome to Thank the Maker, a podcast about heroes, princesses, scoundrels, hokey religions, ancient weapons, and all things Star Wars. 26 minutes late. My name's Adam Russell. Oops.
You've done it! Hi, guys. I'm Ryan Key.
Hey, I'm Nick Ganbarian.
Coming in hot.
It's Mike Forrester. How lovely is it for Thank the Maker to all be back in one square?
I'm sacrificing a lot right now. The New York Rangers are in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. If you see me looking off screen, it's because I'm watching a hockey game.
Yeah, Nick, I have to tell you, if the dogs were in the playoffs and this was happening, wow, I'm proud and impressed.
It's only Game 1.
I don't think I'd be here.
Rangers,
well, the problem with football
dogs.
playoffs is there's only a Game 1. That's
exactly.
it.
Right. Are we talking about forestry? Are we talking about pets?
I only like hockey. You know this.
What are these words? Oh, okay.
Right.
Got it. Sports.
Sports ball, Adam. Sports ball.
Sports puck. It's my favorite pastime.
It's like pod racing. Pod racing is a sport.
Now I know. Now I'm connected. Look at you. Segway king. So we have a guest today. First time we've had a guest with all five of us in a long time. First time we've had a guest in a minute, actually. You may not know his face, but you know the faces he's been behind. Many of them. Many. I'll list them a little bit. But say hello, actor Chris Bartlett. What's up, bud?
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me. This is awesome. And I have to say, you all have impeccable fashion sense. I'm so impressed that you all are so synced up here with just
Chris, a company-wide memo went out earlier today, and so we at risk of losing my job, I had to follow the memo.
Didn't you get the memo?
But man, I didn't know if I had the shirt. I didn't know if I had it because everyone wear this shirt. And I was like, do I even have it? Because we get. I have enough Roosevelt shirts to clothe
a village,
generations of my family, and so I was like, I don't even know if I have that shirt. And then Mike was like, it's in the May the 4th drop, and I'm like, oh. I didn't Sharpie every box for the last 8 months, but it must be the newest one. So I'm going to go try to find that box. And there it was. Lo and behold, I do have this shirt. Nice job, dude.
Well,
it looks
we'll
great
circle back
on you,
around
Ryan.
to the significance of
Thank you
of these shirts in a minute.
Okay,
but we should fill everyone in. We'll just a brief rundown of the countless Star Wars series you've been in since the very beginning of the Disney Plus era. You know, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Book of Boba Fett, all the way back to Chapter 1 of The Mandalorian. The very first character you played, as far as I can tell, not a droid, but another species, a flute-playing Kuba's ferryman. No? Yes?
Yes, the ferryman who, funnily enough, when I got the call for that, the production assistant said, we'd like to bring you in for the ferryman. And I was like, what show is it? And she said,
you're like, I thought Willow got canceled.
Yeah, exactly. I thought, is this Lord of the Ewoks? Or what am I, like, am I going to have, like, woolen legs and shirtless, obviously? So I said, literally, the conversation, I said, well, what am I going to be, like, playing a flute? And she goes, yeah. I'm like, oh.
You're like, oh, I'm an Oompa Loompa.
So when you play a flute in real life, do you stick it in your nostrils? Or no?
Yeah. And you can't see. No. It was, right. That was another thing is you can only see this way straight out. You can't see down below. You also can't feel it. So, trying to fit that thing in the snout on cue with 30 people watching, waiting. And I'm like, and action. I'm like, nope, that's not it. Shoot. Okay. And everyone's laughing. And I'm like, no, this is like my wedding night. Anyway, so I figured it out and got it done.
Done.
Anyway, the ferryman. And I was so relieved that he was a really well-known species, the Kubas, as you correctly identified, Adam, as the Imperial spy on Mos Eisley, same species. So that was really cool.
Nice. You also have played, I mean, like countless characters. Many, many droids, bounty hunter droids, mercenary droids, teacher droids, server droids, traffic droids, navigator droids, protocol droids, including C-3PO himself. Has anybody ever... Is there anyone out there who's played more droids than you? Legit question.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. I feel very lucky, Adam, to be able to have this kind of niche, because I love droids in Star Wars. I feel like it's not Star Wars without droids, you know, and so to be able to play them is really a lot of fun. As a kid, I used to build my own costumes with my parents, and one year I have this great photo of me in a giant silver cardboard robot that my dad built out of cardboard boxes and like TV dinner tray and egg crate stuff, and I just inside it I felt like I was Megatron, like I was so massive and powerful. And I could see, I don't know, it just felt so cool because my face was covered and everything. I just felt like, and for me, that was really a core experience as a kid. And so to put that one next to, say the RA-7, which is a chrome Death Star droid that was used as like the thumbnail on one of the episodes of season 2, the finale. And then I sent it to my parents and said, how it started, how it's going. It was really a cool
That's awesome.
moment.
So I have this question that I've been wanting to ask. Sorry, we're working with a bit of a delay. I have this question that I've been wanting to ask someone for a long time, and you're a perfect candidate for this question. I've thought so much about what it would be like to have the opportunity to be in Star Wars, or write or direct for Star Wars, and I thought this this hit me hardest when I first heard that they were doing a sequel trilogy. Heard J.J. Abrams was doing it, knew that he was a huge Star Wars fan, and I've always wondered, is there a part of someone, whether they're a director, an actor, anything, where you're afraid to sort of demystify Star Wars, or in switching the perspective from a viewer, a fan, to someone who's involved directly in it? Did any of that ever cross your mind, or were you like, give me the job, let's do it?
That's a great question, because it's like with anything that you do that you have a passion for, and then you do it and end up doing it for a living, and then does it lose something? Is that what you're asking?
For sure.
Thankfully for me, I just get the information for my character and my episode or my scene. And so I don't have the entire arc. Everything is kept very tight security wise, and so I don't get to know the whole arc of everybody's the story or anything. So I really do get to watch the show as a fan. I know my parts, and I'm excited to see how those turned out, but I don't know all the rest of it, so I really get to enjoy it as a fan. And you know what, I'm the kind of kid that loved magic. Like I loved David Copperfield as a kid. Every time there's a special on TV with David Copperfield where he's making the Statue of Liberty disappear, walking through the Great Wall of China, it doesn't ruin it for me to find out how the trick is done, because for me, I realize somebody can perform this, and people can see this really fun example. I'll share an example with you. When I was about 7 years old, my cousin Ted Tieford worked at Disneyland, and he was Goofy for like 35 years. And when I was about 7 years old, you can't do this now, but he brought me backstage, and I got to meet I think it was the Seven Dwarves, or the performers that were suiting up. So I got to like put on the hands and put on a head and stuff. As a little kid, this did not demystify it for me. It made it more magical to think like, oh, real people do this, right? And how fun is that they get to do that? Because I know the feeling I have as a person at the park enjoying the performances. And so to think like, wow, somebody does this, what could I maybe do this someday? That was another one of those core experiences where I felt like that really shaped my adulthood, I think.
That's awesome.
Going back to the question of basically like, does anything ruin anything? I did always, as much as we cover on this show, and we know enough about how things are made. We don't want to know everything, but I can't imagine the gymnastics that happen backstage to keep certain secrets, just even keeping Luke Skywalker out of, some of the actors who were in the scene in The Mandalorian, not knowing that it was Luke Skywalker. It just seems so hard to do. And like, I can't even imagine any other franchise has to do that. Like Star Wars has to be the only one that does this.
Or like Grogu, the secret of Grogu. I mean, I think it was smart that they, we revealed him at the end of the very first episode, because I don't know how that could have, but everyone, I think, we shot the whole season and nobody knew about it. So, nobody outside the production. I mean, I first met Grogu when I went for a screen test as Zero. They suited me up and I was walking around the Legacy Effects there, kind of trying to get the feel of this character. And I came around the corner and I saw this little green guy. Yeah, there you go. There's Zero. This little green guy sitting on a table, and I'm like, "What is that?" And and I knew immediately that was going to be a huge star on the show, even though I didn't know his name or his role or anything, because I didn't have a script yet. All I was doing was the screen test. And so anyway, that was they do. We love these stories. We love these characters. We want the audience to be able to experience them in the way that we're trying to present them. With in the story, not like internet rumor or something. So we want to all keep it quiet. So that's it's part of all
Chris,
the big reveal.
Is there another part of it too where, from Adam's story, or from Adam's question, which is very, I think all of us think about that at some point, of saying, do we want to influence Star Wars? Do we want to actually see how these things are made? But is there something also to be said for going, we have Tamara Morrison's stunt double on top of a Rancor, but then you get to see it as a fan watching it, this crazy finale for Book of Boba Fett that also adds the artistry of the special effects artists. Do you think that's part of why you're going, the magic is the magic? Because I don't understand how that stuff works either.
Yeah, maybe. The thing is, legitimately, I don't know I didn't, I did know there was going to be a Rancor, but I did know Boba Fett was going to be riding it, but I didn't see that happening. I wasn't filming on that day. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, this sounds incredible. But I knew Cad Bane was going to be in the episode too. So I was really excited to see him too. But I hadn't seen any of it. I only saw my stuff. So any hints that I got, I do try to avoid some things. Like if it's not part of what I'm doing, if it doesn't affect my character, I kind of don't really want to know. I'd really rather just see it as a fan. So if I wanted to, I could ask people about different episodes or whatever, but I just stick to my stuff because I really want to do the best job I can with my stuff. But I still want to enjoy it as a fan. So yeah, I think it's even more than just, I don't know how the VFX work. It's that I just want to enjoy it as a fan too, and I get to, so it's good.
I love that answer.
Speaking of being a fan on set, you had the pleasure of working with the late great Carl Weathers.
Copper was his droid.
I did, yeah.
I mean, talk about a legend.
Yeah, season. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I worked with Carl since season 1. Yeah, since season 1, I worked with him. I was the, that bartender droid in that big shootout at season 1. I was wearing the Zero costume, where we had all the shootout in the streets of Navarro, where all the Mandos came and rescued Mando. I worked with him on just several characters, and but it wasn't until season 3 where I was directly working with him all the time, every day, just about on set. And the thing with between Carl and I was we didn't have anything in common when I first started. He would always talk about fighting and sports, and I was like, I don't talk that language. And
so the three of us and
we
Adam,
really connected.
That's how that is.
Yeah. So we really connected over the work, though. And so because I was his right-hand droid, Copper, throughout the season, we worked together a lot, and not just in proximity. He would because what I like to do is come out in full character, so that so the crew and cast can experience, like, a droid. What does that look like? And it kind of like jumpstarts the day and things like that. It just I also, because I'm a nerd. So that's what I would want to see if I was working on Star Wars, a droid coming up. So I would come out, and then Carl would say, Chris, let's take off the mask. I want our characters to have an emotional connection, so that it's Carl and Chris building this emotional connection. I was like, God, that's so generous of him. Such
Wow.
a legendary, not only action star, but also director. He directed the episode where I was the teacher droid with Grogu. And here's the thing: I just felt so close to Carl by the end of season 3. That and he was just so personable. Like I'd be sitting there at set in the morning, we're just waiting for everybody to get there and stuff, and I hear Chris, and I'm like, it sounds like Carl. Am I in trouble? He would say, Chris, I heard something shocking about you. And I was like, oh no, Carl, what? He said, I understand that not only you perform in these costumes, but also that you build them yourself. And I said, oh, well, yeah, that is part of the job. And he goes, we need to talk. And I said, well, are we going to make a movie together? What are we going to do? So, and when you become close with someone that you basically grew up with, watching on the big screen, and then get to learn from them, as both as an actor and as a director, and it's like the best Christmas present, And then if someone walks in on Christmas morning and goes, "I'm taking this away," that's a shock, and because he was such a gift to me as just as a human being. But also as a friend and as an actor, and so I felt so bad for his poor family. He was such a healthy, big presence on set, and we really loved Carl, and we're so sad to lose him.
Yeah, man, tragic, incredibly tragic. Because we're all about the same age. Mike's younger, but kids of the 80s and 90s, I grew up watching, all the action movies, the same ones that you did. Apollo Creed was a massive part of my childhood. I grew up watching, Predator and stuff like that. So when I found out he was going to be in Star Wars, I was a little taken aback, because certain actors you have trouble picturing in different things, but he became such like an integral part of the Mandalorian, and it just slid into it so well. And then we started directing. It was so perfect. And I had this like great idea that didn't come to fruition for time and all kinds of other stuff. But I wanted to make, for at a con, at a celebration or something, to bring him a gift for a meet and greet. I wanted to bring him a pair of gloves, customized, to look like his character, whether, some gold trim, pulling from, like, we're looking at a picture right now in the Discord of him. With you as the protocol droid. That never happened, obviously, but it just would have been great to hand it to him, and here you go, champ.
He really appreciated the fans, and I think Comic-Cons were kind of a new thing for him. that he really, I'm not speaking for him, I just from my own observing him, and that I think what was new was just being able to really feel the impact of audiences in a really personal way, and he just really enjoyed that, and he was just he was such a giving person. There's a thing on my Instagram. There's a clip that I did Rhode Island Comic Con last year with him. We did a panel together, and he was just so generous. And I just hope that I can do that for other people. He was, yeah, he's just so giving as an actor, and it was never like I'm Carl Weathers and you're nobody. It was always we are the same. We are both working, and I was just like, wow, yeah, that's so. It's just hard to fathom as a young actor to see that from such a venerated actor. You know. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get to the Phantom Menace here sooner than later because we are, we've just passed the 25th anniversary of that. It's been back in theaters for a few weeks. I think that ends today. So if you didn't get a chance to see it in theaters, you've blown it, listener, viewer. But
podcast host.
Yeah. No names will be named. So I want to talk about that a little bit, but before we do, should we talk about the Roosevelts thing now?
Wait. Hang on. Before we talk about Phantom Menace, but we're still in the droids, right? We're still in the droids?
Right. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
Take it away, Mike. Do it. Do the thing.
Are we super choppy right now for anybody else?
We are having technical difficulties.
Professional podcasters. Thank you.
Mike is definitely choppy.
He's faulty, malfunctioning.
There you go.
There we go.
On cue.
All right.
Oh, I love my job.
Working? Yes.
I'm trying to see if if you guys can actually hear me.
We can hear you, but you look like the Legend of Zelda.
Mike is maybe no longer with us.
Okay, sure. 8-bit.
We did all we could.
I'll try again.
Yes.
I think where Mike was going was the Roosevelt shirt, though. So if we wanna get into that,
we'll start. We'll talk about that, and if Mike returns from the land of the digital dead, then he'll chime in. So you may have noticed we're all wearing the same shirt. Chris mentioned it earlier. This particular Roosevelt's design was designed by another designer, right? In terms of compiling this, but all of these images, all of these sketches, I should be bringing up a better picture of it. All of these were done by Chris Bartlett himself, right? Are you going to pull one up?
That's right. Yeah, there was a talented designer who put it all into a pattern. But I did all the drawings myself. They're straight out of my sketchbook that I did specifically for this Roosevelt's project. I love droids. I've loved drawing since I was little, and that was how I met up with Roosevelt's. I was just at a convention in Orlando, and Andrew Stonecipher came up and he goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just drawing." I was drawing in between, people coming up to visit with me, and so he just saw some of them, and he said, "Oh, we should do something together. I work for Roosevelt's." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, that's cool. I love Roosevelt's. What did you have in mind?" And so anyway, we just started working together. I showed him some ideas, and they picked one, and it was this style. I've been a graphic artist for my whole career outside of acting, working on video games, and but drawing was always the thing that got me into graphic art. And so anyway, that's it was, the idea was it's supposed to feel like, when you're drawing on your notebook in class, when you're in high school, you're drawing on your book cover or whatever, or in your notebook, and that's kind of how I was drawing them anyway, so it worked out perfect, and I love how it turned out.
Is there anything this man cannot do?
Dude. So okay, there are a few things I love about this shirt. One, it's a few of the droids you've actually played. Same models at least, right? And the style.
Yeah.
You mentioned it being in a sketchbook. It has a style that is familiar to me from Doug Chiang, like the kind of felt tip marker.
Yes.
Concept
Wow,
drawing.
that's great. Yeah, So yeah. Now, of course, Doug's art is way more technical, but there is a technique that you can use in drawing where you rough out all the shapes with a either a red line marker or in my case I was just doing gray, basically gray blobs where I would put shapes and this is where shadows, this is where the underpart is, whatever, and then go over it with a with a finer detail. But yeah, that would be the only remote line you could draw between me and Doug Chiang. Doug Chiang is a legendary concept artist and now a VP at Lucasfilm. But yeah, I am totally inspired by Doug Chiang, and
he's brilliant.
Who did you say that you ran into that said they worked for Roosevelt?
Andrew Stonecipher.
Okay, so it's funny because I feel like we're like our love for Roosevelt is no secret. They're some of our like best friends, and I feel like I've seen that. The reason why they sponsor us and we're friends is even just because I met them at Comic-Con 2 years ago, and like when I hang out with them, I see the same thing happening, and it just makes me so happy that like as a company it's so organic how they wind up working with people, and it's so refreshing,
Yeah, the thing is, and this is my philosophy as an artist, as an actor, as a performer, is that I was just doing something that I wanted to see. It wasn't an assignment. I wasn't trying to get a job or impress anybody. I was just drawing it because I like to draw, and it was going in my notebook, and that's it, And so I really feel that is, and you as musicians, I'm sure too, know this, that when you make stuff for yourself, you always make the best work. I'm not saying the very first try, but I'm saying that when you're working on something for yourself, what is something you want to see? That's really when you end up with the best work. And as opposed to like trying to chase a trend or chase a job or trying to impress somebody, you always kind of fall short or overshoot it or whatever. Make stuff for you that you want to see and the way that you want to do it. So that's what I was doing, and it just so happened that that's what I was doing. That's how I got into acting. That's how I got to work with Roosevelt's. That's a thread that goes through my whole life too.
That's amazing. It's awesome, and you're absolutely right. It's when you're not trying and you're truly letting it flow that all the magic happens. And like you said, it's not every single time, but it's about the consistent, continuous process of creating, and then the magic moments come out of that.
That's why so many first albums are first albums.
Right. There's a yeah. Right. That's why so many shows, have first seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Then you see them get in, third season. But yeah, that's we're just making stuff for ourselves. And there's a book I'm reading by Rick Rubin called The Creative Act. Maybe you've read it, but he's a record producer, super talented, very successful record producer. And that's one of his philosophies is make it for yourself.
Awesome. Well, let's before we get to the Phantom Menace, one more thing. You are a little bit older than us, not too much older. You were born in 70. We were born in 79, 80. So I have to imagine you have some pretty vivid memories from childhood seeing Star Wars for the first time. Did you see?
Yeah, I was 7.
In 77? Okay, so you're sick.
Yeah.
You have a pretty vivid memory of it?
My parents... Oh yes, 100%. I was, I remember that it was coming out, so you'd see the trailers for it were very, very sparse as far as information or visuals, even. But it just seemed like it was something that we really wanted to go see. So my parents took me, the first week it was open, and we waited in line, and I was old enough to appreciate going to the movies, and I was young enough that it impacted my entire life. I mean, it started my imagination at that point. It's not like I was 20 and I saw it. Um, but I was sitting on the edge of my seat, while watching it, and couldn't get enough. And the thing is, it was just Star Wars. The movie was called Star Wars. That was it. There was no chapters or any episodes or anything like that. And so there was no promise of any future film or sequel or stories or anything like that. So that was it. And then the thing that kept it going was the action figures, because we saw this amazing story, and then we were like, gosh, I can't stop thinking about it. And I'm 7 or 8, so I when I run in to go to the toy store and I see Star Wars action figures, now I can have my own, and I can make my own stories in the shag carpet in my living room. And I was that's what really kept it continuing. It just had such a lasting, engaging experience for me. But and then of course the characters are so interesting and relatable. So I built that was the first costume I built with my parents, was Luke Skywalker with a tinfoil belt buckle and an inflatable
Nice.
flashlight lightsaber. And I really felt like I looked just like him. I had the karate shirt or whatever, and I had the nylons wrapped around my boots. And so that was the first costume, and that was the first. Yeah, it influenced my entire creative life in many ways. And also, every movie was judged by that.
Yeah.
With Star Wars,
Yeah.
from that point on.
It's amazing. I mean, the just, we say it all the time, but it is so wild that in like a pre-internet age, how basically you could almost call like Star Wars existing like an algorithm, because it changed the trajectory of so many things, and it affected all of us, where you're doing the same thing that someone else is doing, where I'm like, I have to dress like Luke Skywalker. That's how much this movie has affected me, like I have to do it.
Right.
Where, who knows? I don't really know if that existed
Yeah.
beforehand, like I want to dress up in a Halloween costume. Actually, I don't even
Yeah.
care if it's Halloween. I'm dressing up like Luke Skywalker, plus the figures. I mean, that's what made me. My memories of Star Wars as a childhood was playing with figures more than it was watching movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We spent hour and a half in the movie theater, and then we spent years playing action figures and coming up with stories of, everybody has Luke and Darth Vader, but what about R5D4 and Snaggletooth, or Walrus Man, or Hammerhead? Like, what's their stories? We only saw them for a second, but now we're going to make up stories, and they're going to get together, and they're going to be buddy cops in this bounty hunter, story, whatever that we're going to dream up. So that was genius, on George's part.
Absolutely. So this leads us to 1999, The Phantom Menace, and the year before when we get the trailers. So you were in your late 20s. We were all 18, 19 years old. So, both old enough to really have some very vivid expectations and experiences in the theater. Do you remember standing in line for The Phantom Menace? Do you remember the hype leading up? I'm sure this is pretty vivid, super vivid in your memory as well, right?
Yeah, I didn't camp out in line, but I was I was super excited for more Star Wars, and I will tell you, I'll just confess right now, I'm easily entertained by Star Wars. Okay, so like if I get troopers or aliens or land speeders or ships flying overhead, or whatever, I'm really Jawas hiding in the rocks. So I'm just really entertained by it. And so I was really excited for it to come out. And it was shortly after that I got involved with building costumes as an adult to like reignite what I was doing as a kid and my involvement with Star Wars. But anyway, I loved the Phantom Menace, from the seeing Jawas and Tusken Raiders again and seeing them much more in action, like, firing at the pod race. The pod race itself was because I loved the land speeder as a kid. I really did believe that by the time I was driving age, which really would have been like 9 years after, I really did believe we'd have floating cars, in the future. And so being able to see pod races and it's like a land speeder, but a really way more dramatic times 1,000, sequence. Darth Maul, I mean, like, what a cool character. So there was so much to love about it. And then you get to see young Obi-Wan, obviously young Darth Vader. How could he possibly turn into this evil, menace when he starts out as a little kid? Oh, well, we all start out as little kids. So what is that, transition like? So I was just really so much anticipation and just I loved it.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about, when I was 18, 19 years old, probably the same for these guys. We were just right at that point in, mid-adolescence, late adolescence, whatever, where we're fully focusing on what is going to be our future. For us, it was music, So I was super hyped. I was there, I still have, to this day, I have a collection of movie tickets starting in 99 with The Matrix, actually. I've kept every single movie ticket for 25 years now. I mean, the first six, I guess, are The Matrix, The Phantom Menace, The Matrix, The Phantom Menace, back and forth. And, so I was there, and I was fully about it, but I just wasn't in a headspace to appreciate how significant it was that we were getting new Star Wars as I would be now or as I was later, even if I was 9 years older. Enough to get into costuming and whatnot. I went straight from watching new Star Wars into being a band, and that was my 100% focus.
I was literally on tour. So saw the film, bought a plastic lightsaber and went to the movie, and then carried on in the van to the next city and just kept playing rock and roll. I agree. I wasn't anywhere. I wasn't prepared for where I would be now at this point in my life. Right. And looking back on the journey, I mean, we're at halftime. You know what I mean? This is the halftime show of life where we are now. And like looking back on the first half of the game, sports references. You like that? Chris, these are for you. Sports references. Me and Carl, that's what we do. Right. It's what we do. So, but looking back on it now and realizing obviously what Star Wars has done for me in my life and the community and the family it's brought me and the inspiration it's brought me to be a creative person myself, my love of film and storytelling and music through the score, John Williams and the scores of these films and all. I wasn't ready for all of that in 1999. I just remember seeing a poster with a little kid with a giant shadow of Darth Vader behind him, and at the time thinking this is going to be the best movie I've ever seen in my life. There was a lot of excitement, but I don't think that the filmmaking, the score, the costumes, the lore, none of that had really set in yet. And it actually, it took many years after 1999, I think, for me to truly realize what it really means to me. And so, looking back on the 25th anniversary of this film, it's a pretty incredible thing to realize. Like I remember how passionate and excited I was for it, but it was kind of like a fleeting moment. It was like I bought a ticket, I saw the movie, and then I carried on living my life, But now, I mean, if that movie came out now, The Phantom Menace, it's It's not my favorite Star Wars movie. If it came out now, I would go see it 10 times in a row in the theater because I am who I am now. And, Star Wars is what it is to me now.
It's powerful stuff, man.
That's interesting because the kids that were their children when they watched it, which is who the Star Wars films are made for. They're adults now, so they kind of like what you're saying, Ryan, can now express what that meant to them. And I've heard, actors like Ahmed Best or Hayden Christensen or Ewan McGregor talk about what that means to them to be able to meet those kids as adults and who can express themselves to them, and they feel the love of those characters that they had for them is just really special. I know it means a lot to them.
And that was George's plan the whole time, right? Like he said that to all of them don't worry, the kids are going to love it.
Yeah. And that's, I don't know if mission statement is the right thing to say about it or the right way to define it, but something that is a through line on this podcast and has been from the beginning is to not lose sight of that fact. We are a podcast that tries to fight the good fight to keep positivity alive in the Star Wars fandom, which is a place that can just be riddled with toxicity and, just negative opinions about everything. And we are constantly reminding ourselves and hopefully reminding listeners and maybe people who are on the fence about how they feel about Star Wars as an adult and all the new stuff that just be 7 years old again, like you were, Chris, when A New Hope came out. Be 3 years old when The Return of the Jedi came out for us, and you really think you would have this opinion about The Mandalorian or Ahsoka or the sequel trilogy or any of these things that you feel like you are so entitled to be a gatekeeper of because you were 3 years old when Return of the Jedi came out? And that mindset helps me, take in all the new content with just the right mindset, because even if there is, sort of, we call them like monster of the week episodes, in the Bad Batch or whatever else, where it's not the most character driving or story driving episode. I remember that these stories are made to ignite imagination in young people and children. And like, I want my kid, I have a kid, I'm a father for the first time 5 months in. I want my kid to love Star Wars so badly.
Congratulations.
He may not. Thank you. He may not, but I want him to so badly, and not because I want to share my love of Star Wars with him. I want him to get out of it what I got out of it, which is learning to imagine and play and create. We talked about action figures and all those things. And I think for me, again, going back to the prequels, The Phantom Menace, not my favorite film. But it's so easy for me now, in hindsight, to look at that film and realize how special it must have been to young people and kids who were just old enough in 1999 to go to the movies for the first time. And their parents were, one generation ahead of us, but they were nonetheless adults when they saw Star Wars. They were in their 20s or, maybe early 30s when they saw Star Wars through the 70s and 80s. And they're taking their kids with this excitement. I'm bringing you to experience Star Wars in the theater for the first time. And I guess I'm preaching a little bit on a soapbox here on the podcast, just to remind all of you out there to keep it in mind. Just when you're watching everything that's coming, the Acolyte and the new feature films and everything we have coming, just remember that you're supposed to share this with, future generations and young people's imaginations. And it's never going to capture you the way it did in 1977. That's just not, you're not a kid anymore. And so I think it's so cool to look back on this film 25 years later and be, you, even Chris, you and I being, 10 years apart, your experience versus mine. I think you were more in a place to say, all right, I'm ready to start costuming. This is motivating me to take the next step in my career, whereas I was just like, cool, Star Wars, it's another Star War. But generationally, what a thing what a miraculous thing Star Wars is,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, Ryan, that when those came out, we had 3 television channels.
Mm-hmm.
When those original films came out, and we had no way to record TV. I mean, this, I know it sounds like ancient history, but now we are flooded with choices of entertainment. So think about what some people are complaining about. Okay, it's plot holes that they see or whatever, that, like, we now have uh access to every conceivable genre and movie or show that we could possibly imagine in our fingertips. And Where was I going with that? Oh, if there's something that loved so much about Star Wars, and maybe you're not as enamored with maybe a particular show or a particular film. Um, uh, would you consider that there's a ton of people who worked really hard to bring you entertainment?
We talk about that all the time,
Like,
man.
like we want to enter you so you could sit and enjoy it and have an escape from your day-to-day stressful whatever. Um, Also, if you are so passionate about writing or filming or something, you also have you can make your own films. You can put them immediately on YouTube. You can write your
Mm-hmm.
own stories. I mean, there's so much access to media now that we have, that right, make something that you would like to see. If it's in Star Wars or in some other genre, but if it's in Star Wars that we're talking about, yeah, like, write your own story and then get together with a couple of friends and, like, film a short. Like, I've done that with uh with a couple of films that one that I worked on was Sands of Fate, which is a fan film with done by Timothy Martin, who is a good friend of mine, who is a great writer, and he will take corners of the Star Wars universe and then uh, and then magnify that and see what all detail is in that corner, and then add a little twist on it, and then when you watch it, it's a surprise. So I just love that what Tim does, and it's just fun. We're just making it for ourselves. There was nobody who was financing it except for us, and we were just making it for ourselves. So I would say, if you don't like what's being made, make something of your own and share that with people.
Yeah. Yeah. Put up or shut up.
You know, be a creator. Well, I'm not saying
Yeah.
that. I'm just saying, if you're so passionate, you should be a creator, because you
Yeah.
obviously have strong opinions. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the 25th anniversary, and then talk about some nuggets from the movie that maybe we missed the first time we covered this, way back in episode 11 of Thank the Maker, years ago now. First, so now that Mike has disappeared into the Matrix, I think I'm the only one on here who actually got to see the re-release this past few weeks, right?
Oh,
Nick, you were on tour.
Yeah, I've been on tour, and it was playing this week, but I just couldn't swing it.
I have a 5-month-old.
He needs to get a job. So I got to see it. My wife and I went to, I think we saw an IMAX screening. Either way, beautiful, 4K resolution, huge screen, and I took a few things away from it. I've had this, trajectory like a lot of fans have had, where I was young and there were things I loved about it at first because it was new Star Wars. So I gravitated towards all the things that I loved. And then as the subsequent films came out, Phantom Menace went a little lower on my ranking, and then, I got caught up in some of the same kind of hater vibes that a lot of people do over time. And I've come back around and I have this new re-energized appreciation for the film for what it is, especially after watching animation and seeing that Star Wars, being reminded that Star Wars is for kids, and that it can be two things at once. It can be multiple things at once for different generations of people, different types of viewers. So I have this new appreciation for it. And I also listened to this incredible podcast, which I've referenced a few times, called The Redemption of Jar Jar Binks.
It's so good.
It is incredible. It's like, it's incredibly emotional. I cried.
What is it? A podcast?
Every episode. Yeah. It's
The Redemption of Jar Jar Binks. And it's just Ahmad Best being interviewed for 6 episodes talking about his journey and
Oh, cool.
how dark it got and how redeeming it's been to come back into the universe and be loved by the kids we're talking about that are adults now. It's a really,
Yes.
really special and important listen if you're a Star Wars fan.
I'll send you a link. It's really, really well
I'll go
produced
check
as well.
that out.
It's done by a guy who had a different podcast called it was something like Conversations with People Who Hate Me or something
Yeah.
like this. And he really,
Yeah.
I haven't listened to it, but just his overview of that early in, I guess, the first episode, and then some stuff I've read. It's he just has a great approach to kind of breaking down these walls and facades and things, and deconstructing people's feelings for something that are so negative and so toxic. So he tells the story, and then he eventually brings Ahmed into the actual interviews a few episodes in, and it's so good. I can't say enough good stuff about it, so check that out. But point being, seeing it in the theater, I just found it to be this like really wholesome, fun version of Star Wars, and then the action and everything was just extra exciting because I hadn't seen it in a theater in 25 years. So it was great, and it also held up visually so well. Of course, the CG stuff, like I pay a lot of attention to visual effects, and I noticed things like low res textures and all this kind of stuff. It was early days with full CG characters, so you can see you're not seeing subsurface scattering on skin and all this advanced stuff that we have now, and that is present. And if you know what to look for, you see it. But the miniature work and the digital compositing that they did, where compared to like the Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary that I just saw, beautiful, crisp and wonderful. Even the film grain itself is beautiful, but all I can see are matte lines everywhere around every ship. The dark matte lines everywhere. Because again, I'm looking for that kind. I'm not looking for it, but I see it. But the digital compositing that they got to do, all of the miniatures look insane. Like they look so good and so crisp. Very few matte lines.
Practical. They're real.
The bigatures.
Yeah.
And you do see stuff like, in the council chamber, you can see they had to do the kind of blooming around the hair to use the bright light from the outside of the council chamber in Coruscant to kind of it was early days with really making hair look nice on a blue screen. So there's some little fuzziness and other stuff you pick up on, but all the exteriors, all the ships, they just look so good. So I loved that, and it just felt good to see the crawl, see the 20th Century Fox opening with the fanfare, see the crawl. It was just magic again. So
I think we all just also have a different relationship with them 25 years later because of animation, because of the series, like Kenobi and stuff like that. Like it's we've talked about it ad nauseum. Our expectations at that point in our life as a society for Star Wars was just through the roof. It took maybe 20 years for us all to calm down and be like, okay, okay, it's good. Like, and it continues the story, and it sparked and like planted the seed for the Clone Wars, which obviously becomes Rebels, which becomes Ahsoka, which becomes the Mandalorian, like all this stuff. So, it's an important part of it all. And as a fandom, the people who, I know that there's probably more people than not that kind of settled down and were just like, no, I like it. It's good. Is it my favorite? No, but it's good, and I appreciate it for what it sparked afterwards.
For sure.
Sure. Plus, we got to see C-3PO's origins, possible, or at least his second origins, because originally he would have been in a junk pile or something. Yes, Adam.
I have a thing about that I'm interested to hear your perspective on in a minute.
Oh.
I did have a whole list of we do the segment called the Den of Antiquities, where we go through and we talk about Easter eggs and references and deep cuts and things like this. So I made kind of a new list talking about DVD special editions and Blu-ray and all that, but we're running a little long, so I'm gonna cut most of that and mention a couple things that I noticed in the theater. One that I feel like maybe I've heard about, but it really jumped out at me seeing it that big. First, just something really fun. I noticed Ben Burtt, sound designer, famous Star Wars sound designer who created, the sounds of the lightsaber and R2-D2 and all these famous things, who went on to also become an editor. He was, I think, the main editor on the prequels. He plays a background character in the, second to last, or I guess the last sequence, second to last sequence, whatever it is, when Palpatine shows up and there's like the Queen's welcoming party. He's one of the, he's like I don't know, he's some kind of emissary or something, and he's back behind Padme. Eben Q3 Baobab is his name, and apparently he pulled this name from the Droids series back in the day. So I don't know, I just thought that was really cool. I noticed his face there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed, again, because of the mix and the experience in the theater, the Duel of the Fates score hit a little differently in, full Atmos there in the theater. So the whispers later, when Maul's squaring up and you hear the whispers of the lyrics, because there are lyrics to the Duel of the Fates, and it's this cool story. I feel like maybe I heard this, but I got a good refresher today. So Williams wanted something that sounded kind of ritualistic and kind of pagan, because Maul has this, he's got this look. So he found something that it's a Celtic epic, like a poem called Cad Gadu. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, sorry to anyone who's Celtic out there. It translates to Battle of the Trees in English. It's about a Welsh magician who animates trees to be his army, which is like the sickest thing in this context. So Williams had some friends from Harvard translate it into English and then back to Celtic, then to Greek, and then to Sanskrit, which he chose ultimately because he thought it just sounded beautiful, the Sanskrit translation. So a lot of
This
stuff.
This guy.
Like, what a genius. So
come on.
A lot of stuff gets lost in translation, but I want to read just like a few of these lines from it. So it's the Kara Mata Kara Rath Ama, you hear this, these kind of thing, and they're singing these operatic lyrics. The translation, and again, this is direct translation, so it's mixed, and he probably moved some sounds around that sounded cooler. Dreadful head, dreadful speak, give. Dreadful speak, give battle, dreadful. Dreadful raging speak, give purify. Dreadful like taking separate, going, lost like taking dreadful speak. And it just keeps repeating. And it's so perfect. When you think about Maul, and you think about the concept, you think about the concept art, which went on to inspire the Night Sisters. So how much did this choice by John Williams to do this Celtic pagan kind of thing, and then the concept art just absolutely create the whole Night Sisters thing? It's like he seeded the whole thing and connected the dots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things.
I love the idea of the.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I love the idea of the dark side being this cult-like idea. However, many of the truths we cling to depend greatly upon our point of view. That. Imagine being on the other side, looking at the Jedi that are so controlling of their behavior and things like that. That's got to look like a cult to them, But I think that's something that is going to be explored probably possibly in the Acolyte. Oh, I don't know anything about the show other than what I've just read online, but I think that'll be pretty cool. But to your point, I think it was a great choice to make it feel very like ritualistic, full of dread and spooky whisperings, that I think we saw even more of that later on in Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. It'll be so interesting to see how the Sith Eternal and everything in the fullness of time here with Filoni's long-term vision, how it all connects together. I'm so interested.
Yeah, and whether or not it is actually, let's just say it is somehow connected, or again, use the word spark. I think when it comes to songwriting or writing a script or any of this stuff, I always urge, especially in my band, I'm like, let's just try this. Even if it goes nowhere, you never know. If this doesn't go somewhere, somebody else might have their brain will go somewhere else and create a better idea. Even if what we're actually working on doesn't cut it, it might give someone else a different idea that is better, So if for the sake of this, if this has any influence on the Night Sisters or the cult of the Sith, like all that type of stuff, like it's just, to me, when I'm thinking about creating, it's like always try everything. You don't have to, like, I'm not talking about like jamming for an hour, like I'm just talking about literally trying someone's idea, because you never know where your brain will go or someone else's brain will go. So if that is somehow John Williams creating this thing that was, listened to by someone else who was designing the Night Sisters or the aura around the Night Sisters, like that's a beautiful thing if that's actually how that happened.
Love it.
Nick, that's such a great point. I love the idea of trying stuff. Just you look, we get so afraid of failing that we're like, I don't want to do that because I'm probably not going to be good at it anyway. And if it messes up, I just can't handle that, failure. No, my whole career I was just trying stuff, like when I got into building props or costumes and stuff, I was like, I don't know if I could do this, but I'm going to go to Home Depot and buy some PVC pipe and sprinkler parts and see if I could build a blaster, but and of course it looked lame, but I tried it, and then I tried something different after that. And then I always say, you never know where this could lead. I don't know where this is going to lead, but I'm just trying something, and it's that's how I ended up here. And that's how I think every creative, the successful creatives are people who weren't afraid of failing. They know they're going to fail. They know the first try is probably going to be crappy, but what if I show it to 3 of my friends and they're like, hey, that's cool. The part you did on this thing is cool. What if we did that, time 6, and now we have, some, whatever. It just, I love being with other creative people, because your idea will inevitably spin up into something that's much better than if I had just sat in my, garage just trying to figure out other solutions. So anyway, I love your point that you said, just try stuff.
Well, Chris, you're segueing us kind of perfectly into this last one, and then we'll get out of here. So you tried a lot of things in your adult life, different career paths. You didn't go straight into acting and trying to be an on-screen performer per se. You were, if I'm reading the right thing, you were a UX director or UX designer for video games, right? You mentioned video games earlier.
Yeah, up until from 97 up until this past June, where I took some time off. I've been working video games as a user experience expert, and it started out as a graphic designer designing heads-up displays for targeting reticles for weapons and vehicles, and
he's speaking my language.
The heads-up displays and how the game communicates to the player. So even though I started out as a graphic designer, I found that I really enjoyed understanding the engagement of a player or an audience member in the product that we were making. So I started out on Gears of War. The first 4 Gears of War games from the very beginning at Epic Games, and then I learned like what is it that that players what gets a player to play a new game, what gets them to buy the game or want to play it more, what gets them to keep coming back every day after school, and keeps them from rage quitting. Like I developed a real love for that information and studied it, and eventually became a UX director on several games, some on the two on the Tomb Raider reboots, on Call of Duty Modern Warfare and Warzone, the first Warzone, and Fortnite. I worked on several of those games, and anyway, so I really enjoy what drives an audience to engage in your story or your music or your game or your movie, and I became pretty good at it. So that was what I was doing as a day job, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to do this full-time acting thing that I've been doing for 18 years. And as soon as I decided that, the strike hit. So, so I was like, oh, nice. I'm trying stuff though, yeah. So, but that got resolved.
Side note, I would, I would be really stoked if you had it in you to come back to the Warzone team to kind of say, what are you doing? What have you done with my game? That's just me though.
Oh no.
If you have it in you to maybe just head back over there and just check in and just kind of maybe say, we made this really great thing and now it's this. What do we? Because it was, if you were involved in the original Warzone, oh man,
I was, yeah.
I want to hug you.
Yeah. It was well, that was just supposed to be another multiplayer mode. You have like team deathmatch. You have
I know
different modes, and then there's gonna be Warzone, which is gonna be So so hang on just a second. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So when we were way ahead of schedule on Call of Duty, Activision said, that mode that you're making, we would like you to turn that into its own game. And
well, it's funny because I actually don't know if I want to hug you or if I want to punch you, because I'm about to turn on my Twitch stream and I'll be up till 3:00 in the morning playing Warzone. So it's I don't know. I don't know.
Good. Yeah, great. Yeah, I mean that was the main challenge that I had to overcome, not only in Warzone but in Call of Duty just in general, was how do we bring in casual players and make it fun for them? These are players who jump into a multiplayer match and die within 3 seconds, and they hate it, and then they never go back to it. And so the main audience is just these hardcore players that have just been playing forever. And so I figured out a few ways of how to engage casual players, and that is part of what made the game so accessible and so fun to more people.
Yeah. It really was. I mean, not
because I'm a casual
for a
player.
different podcast.
I'm not a hardcore player.
Same.
Sure.
But I mean, it's become a social thing for me. It's a huge part of my life, and it wouldn't have been without Warzone. So, but I think to tie this into Star Wars, which we should do. I mean, the concept of going back to just where we are with the fandom and with all the new content. There's hardcores, there's hardcores and there's casuals. And and I just want to remind the hardcores there's casuals and that's okay. There are people there are non-sweats, guys. There's non-sweats. There are people who do not stay up until 3:00 in the morning, watching Star Wars. They just want to enjoy it. They just want to, like you said earlier, Chris, they just want to see a ship fly overhead and some lasers and some droids.
Right.
And
Right.
can we let that happen? Can we let people enjoy what we enjoyed about Star Wars before we had any idea why we enjoyed it? We didn't know.
Right. And
all
now
the
we
things
have
we try to
lots-
gatekeep now. Just
yeah,
let
we
it
have
happen.
lots more people that are making Star Wars. So you get shows like Andor, which is a much different energy than say
Top
Book
tier.
of Boba Fett. Right? And so there's something for everybody, I think. I mean, there's like Tales of the Jedi, which is like for like toddlers, right?
Yep.
Is that Tales of the Jedi? Is that the one with the little blue
Young Jedi
character?
Adventures.
Yeah, Young Jedi Adventures.
Young Jedi Adventures. I'm sorry. Yeah. So I mean, there's something for everybody, and there's nobody that's tying you down, requiring you to watch all of them.
Yeah.
So to bring it back, last thing, bring it back.
Sorry,
to,
Adam. Sorry we went on a Warzone tangent.
It's all good.
I got a little. Like I was already pretty geeked out about tonight, but that just really took it to a new level.
Well, this is.
I mean,
it's relevant to that. So
here we go. It's
talking about heads-up displays and
Nice.
UI, UX, and graphic elements. So there is this moment in the Phantom Menace that I really noticed seeing it big, and maybe I read something about this at some point. Maybe it's out there and I'm just forgetting. But this has to be what it was. So Anakin wins the pod race. He's free, right? He goes back home, talks to his mom. I want to go do this. He goes. It's confirmed he goes in to get his stuff in his room, and he's telling 3PO all about it. Like, I won the pod race. I'm free. I'm leaving on a starship. He's like, bragging to him. And 3PO, there's a wide establishing shot in the room. Anakin's moving around getting his stuff. Close-ups of 3PO, medium shots of Anakin, and then it flips to what, to me, is glaringly, absolutely 100% 3PO's point of view. It's up high, it's looking down, it's a wider lens.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see the lens distortion on the sides. I wonder, talking about just trying stuff, did Lucas think, oh, well, this will be an early look, through 3PO's eyes? Because the original idea of telling the whole story through the droid's perspective, was he going to try maybe a UI heads-up display kind of thing? Or not? I have the clip, so we can take a look at it real quick here.
Well, 3PO, I've been freed, and I'm going away in a starship.
Master Anakin, you are my mentor, and I wish you well. However, I should prefer it if I were a little more completed.
I'm sorry I wasn't able to finish you, 3PO. Give you coverings and all. I'm gonna miss working on you. You've been a great pal. I'll make sure Mom doesn't sell you or anything.
Sell me?
Bye.
Bye.
That's a great
it goes
point.
handheld. It's wide. You can see that lens distortion. I mean, you can see it on the corners there.
Oh yeah.
The little stretch. You see his face a little wider, and the way it moves. Like that had to be it, right?
Yeah, that what you could have. I could totally see it, even if they had just done something subtle. I think we picked up as audience members that this was C-3PO's point of view, but if there had just been like a tiny bit of maybe a yellow glow or some kind of details, identifying little Anakin moving around or something, facial recognition or something. Who knows? But I don't know what they were thinking, but I definitely got that it was from 3PO's point of view.
Yeah.
Bye. It's like he was annoyed. He was like annoyed that he had to say bye to him.
Yeah.
Good stuff. That just jumped out at me. I thought, hey, there's your casual fan project to throw what kind of HUD you would put over 3PO.
Nobody's done that. Yeah. I think
good, like socials clip.
Yeah, dude, redo that scene and put a HUD over it.
Nice.
Wow. I love that idea.
There it is. This was the scene.
Qualified to be able to do that, maybe. Yeah, this is the scene. Yeah.
You've been very generous with your time, so thank you for being with us tonight. It's
Yes,
been
thank you.
awesome hearing your story, and we loved having you. It'll be good to hang in person again. We crossed paths once, didn't talk. You and Mike spent a bunch of time at Roosevelt's, so it'll be good to hang again.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. Yeah, please, I would love to join you guys anytime. We have about 4,000 things that we didn't talk about that we could have plenty of stuff to talk about other times. So I'm
sure.
totally happy to talk anytime.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Patrons, thanks for being patrons. If you're not a patron, you will miss the after show segment where we read from the chat pack conversation cards written by Kelly Knox. This one is the Galaxy. That's the category. If you were a scoundrel in this, if you were a scoundrel in the galaxy, Jesus, Mary and Joseph. A tree fell on my house. If you were a scoundrel in the galaxy far, far away, would you rather work as a smuggler or as a bounty hunter, and why? We'll answer that in the after show segment for patrons. Patreon.com/thankthemakerpod is where you can go to be one if you want to. Chris, thanks again for being here.
My answer is bounty.
And until next week, may the force be with you.
If you enjoy Thank the Maker, you can support us by following and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Or you can support us directly at patreon.com/thankthemakerpod, where you can get access to our Discord server, exclusive content, exclusive merch, our recording live stream, and more. Our patrons quite literally make Thank the Maker possible.
Goodbye. Oh,
Here we go.
you're still there.
Sorry, I had to let